Hey, everybody, welcome to a moment of clarity. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to go through a bunch of things in this moment of clarity breaking news episode. I'm going to go through a few different topics. I want to talk about Biden's latest picks. I want to talk about the Venezuelan election and also Facebook's latest censorship, because that's always a fun thing to get into. I mean, just the fact that, 5% of you are, 5% of my normal viewers actually see any of this. I think Facebook censorship is a good thing to get into, but I'm not going to talk about my personal. I'm going to get into how they're censoring other topics from other creators, content creators, etc. But this is a moment of clarity, breaking news. This is where I kind of riff and chat about various topics as opposed to going through one of the rants. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Please click subscribe. And something else I should mention is I just found out today, unfortunately, there will be no new Redacted tonight this week or next week because of someone in our studio test positive for COVID. That means the whole studio shuts down. And they then, the whole quarantine, and they you can't get tested for 5 days and all that stuff. So anyway, I hope the person gets better and all that stuff, all that jazz. But unfortunately, it means we don't have our studios, so or access to them. So there will be no new Redacted tonight this week or next. But there will be a new Redacted VIP, and we'll be hitting you back with more episodes soon. Anyway, let's get into it. Please click share on your social media platforms. I want to talk about Biden's latest pick, who he says he's put up for his cabinet, who he will try and get Congress to confirm for his cabinet for the position of, and I've talked about a bunch of the other positions before, so if you want to see more on those various positions, go back to other videos I've done. But the latest one, which just happened, is Biden's pick for Secretary of Defense. Now, as many of you know, Joe Biden is a fucking revolutionary, all right? He's looking to change this world. He is not okay with people sitting in line for hours waiting for fucking food in their car at the food banks. He is not okay with people struggling out there. He's not okay with this country being the largest prison state that's ever existed. You and I both know that. He is not okay with the environmental destruction. And now he's going to stand up and change everything. Right? Right? No, not so much. President-elect Biden has announced he's picking, or it's been reported he's picking, General Lloyd Austin as his Secretary of Defense nominee. Now, if you don't know anything about General Lloyd Austin, here is all you need to know according to the mainstream media. If you flick on your mainstream media, if you flick on your corporate media, if you take a moment and you sit down and you allow the corporate media to wash over you, then you will learn one thing about General Lloyd Austin. The only thing that apparently is important is that he is black. That is it. That is all you need to know. And that means this is the most progressive cabinet ever. Oh my God, is it ever? That's what we're being told. Because basically, just because this person is black, that makes this incredibly progressive. That's all you need to know. Hey, by the way, while I'm thinking about it, is the video? Let me know if the video's choppy at all right now. I'm just realizing that I accidentally did not turn on the Ethernet. Instead, this is via Wi-Fi. If the video is all right, then I'll keep going. Yes, General Lloyd Austin, a person of color. And we're told that Biden is giving us the most progressive cabinet ever, just because of their skin color and their genitalia. That is it. That is all that matters. Do not look into these people deeper than that. Okay, literally, this cabinet is progressive, only skin deep. That is as far as you're allowed to look into it. Okay, you just focus on the skin color, focus on the genitalia. Do not ask any questions beyond that. Because if you happen to have a minute and you look a little deeper, and you actually see what almost, General Lloyd Austin has done with his life. You might find out that he has stakes in investment firms that focus on defense contractors. But beyond that, he's actually a board member of Raytheon. He's on their board of directors. Joe Biden has put wants to put a weapons contractor as the head of the largest mass murder machine that has ever existed. And by the way, anytime you're tempted to talk about the Pentagon, to talk about our military industrial complex, you should use those words. The largest mass murder machine that has ever existed. Now, if you really are tempted to, you can sit there and you can debate whether we're entitled to mass murder, but I'm not saying anything that's debatable. This is the largest mass murder machine in terms of sheer power, in terms of number of bombs, in terms of ability to surround the globe, in terms of jets and aircraft carriers, is the largest and bases mass murder machine to have ever existed. That is not debatable. So now, if you want to, with your right-wing friends or whatever, you can sit there and you can debate about whether we should be mass murdering. But the things I'm saying are not debatable about this being the largest mass murder machine that's ever existed. And now Joe Biden wants to put in a weapons contractor, Raytheon. I know you thought Raytheon might be a nice guy. I don't know Raytheon. He sounds like a good dude. But no, Raytheon is a fucking weapons contractor, one of the largest in the world, meaning they make their entirety of their profits from selling weapons of death, much of it to other countries, much of it to the U.S., but they sell weapons of death around the world, and they see how many people they can kill. And Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and General Dynamics, they actually have calls with their investors, their top investors. Obviously, if you were to buy stock, they're not calling you up, all right? You're one of the fucking plebes. You're one of the little people. You're one of the nothings. You're one of the unwashed masses. Your calls don't matter. So they talk to their top investors. They talk to their top people, and some of these calls have leaked. And they literally talk about an area of growth. You know, that is a growth area and what they mean is that there are wars breaking out in that area. I believe it was Lockheed Martin, Marilyn Houston, CEO, on one of these calls said that, you know, war with Iran or being on the cusp of war with Iran is not going to change in the next coming years. So therefore, that's a real area of growth for us. And we expect to sell a lot of weapons to that area of the world because the U.S. is trying to create maybe war with Iran, but at least the war footing with Iran, which helps them sell weapons. So it's a massive conflict of interest to put anyone who has anything to do with Raytheon at the top of the world's largest mass murder machine. It is a phenomenal conflict of interest. But that's what our government is now, right? It is a complete corrupt corporation. It is that is at its heart. That is at its center. That is not an exception when you hear that someone comes from Raytheon and is going to be put at the top of these entities. They're running around the revolving door so fucking fast. They have to take Dramamine just so they're not puking all over everybody. They're spinning around that revolving door. They could power half the world with the amount of energy that if they just set up some sort of turbine connected to the revolving door in Washington, they could power most of this world, I think. But this shouldn't come as a surprise because it was reported that two Raytheon reps, tops of Raytheon, were at Biden's initial transition meetings. He invited weapons contractors into his initial transition meetings. And the CEO of Raytheon was quoted, this is before today, this is a couple weeks ago, was quoted as saying, there's no chance that Biden is going to decrease military spending, right? That would be bad for Raytheon. They want to take all that sweet, sweet military killing money. And so they want to keep the military spending going. Therefore, he was basically putting everyone at ease that don't worry, military spending is not going to go down under a Joe Biden presidency. I mean, you know, none of this should come as any surprise if you actually follow these things, if you actually dig into these things, and if you actually understand Joe Biden's past. He has never stood up for anything progressive. He has never, other than speeches, anyone who wants to claim that Joe Biden is somehow progressive, they just have to point to speeches because it's only words. You know, it's like, look, he gave a speech saying that Donald Trump is a climate arsonist. Donald Trump is burning the world down. Now, you can point to speeches, but you can't actually point to anything he's done. Another time when he was pressed, when there were climate change activists standing in front of him dressed as fucking penguins. They were dressed as penguins at one of his campaign stops. And he finally had to address climate change because he wasn't talking about it at all. And he said, no one's done more for climate change in the Senate, in the government, than I have. Now, there's no evidence of that whatsoever. It's utter horseshit. But in Joe Biden's defense, he's not all cognitively there. There's not a lot of there. So it's quite possible that he thinks he's done something for climate change. And you got to give him that. He doesn't actually know his past. But so, yeah, congratulations, everybody. You have you may soon have an African-American weapons contractor as the top of the world's largest machine for organized mass human murder. Very exciting. Very exciting. That is progressive. That is change. If you get online and you look at all the blue tick liberals online, they are telling you, yes, finally we are being progressive. We're changing this world by showing that even women and even people of color can murder hundreds of thousands and be fine with it. What a progressive world. What a warm and cozy progressive world we live in. Just makes you makes you feel so good. Like a warm blanket wrapped around you. All right, I want to get into another story here. Moving on, and actually, this does have some connections to our aggressive attempts to destroy countries around the world, which obviously is connected to our military. But it's not just done through our military; it's also done through sanctions, economic war that kills hundreds of thousands around the world. They estimate that 50,000 killed in Venezuela within 2 years from our economic war on them. And we're making it difficult for them to deal with COVID. We're making it as difficult as possible for their economy to function. We're making it as difficult as possible for them to have and use their oil so that they can do everything from, commute to heating their homes. All of those things. We're doing our best here in the United States to make their lives awful, and to largely, most of those who die from our economic war are children, babies, because those are the weakest, right? Elderly. So, it's good to know that we're getting the true soldiers. We're really taking out those hardcore Venezuelan soldiers, babies, and the elderly. I don't know about you. I was raised to believe that as long as you're killing babies and elderly, then you're on the right side, right? I think we can all agree with that. As long as the stuff we're doing with our economic sanctions, our economic war, our various attempts to upend countries without bombs, as long as those attempts are taking out the babies and, people over 80, 85, as long as that's who we're taking out, I think we can all high five about that, right? There's no reason that that's something bad to speak of. Just kill the babies and the elderly. I think that was it. I think they had a line about that in the first version of the national anthem. It said something like, kill the babies and elderly. Kill. It was. I think it was kill the little ones and the octogenarians first. They took that verse out. I don't know why. I think it just didn't rhyme. It didn't rhyme as well. But I think I just put it back in because it's a good point. So that's what we're doing in Venezuela. Anyway, Venezuela. Here's the news. Venezuela just had their latest election. The United States and our corporate media, along with other Western countries, Canada, all of them. They wanted to tell you before the elections happened that the elections didn't count. And they wanted you to know that because they don't want you to think that Venezuela has legit elections, which they do. Venezuela has more legit elections than the United States does. It has more international observers than the United States does. It doesn't use ridiculous touchscreen machines like the United States does. So Venezuela just had their elections, and I'm going to read a quote from, if you want to learn more and really dig into what's going on in Venezuela, you can go to venezuelaanalysis.com. They do good work. That's venezuelaanalysis.com. So they say the ruling United Socialist Party, which the initials are PSUV, and its allies have swept Venezuela's parliamentary elections and regained control of the National Assembly. Combined opposition parties, which have controlled the parliament for the last 5 years, won only 28% of the vote. Now, this shouldn't be that much of a surprise, really, for multiple reasons. One is that the opposition in Venezuela is split up amongst many parties, so it's not surprising that they have a more difficult time winning. But beyond just that, they had that disastrous horseshit with Juan Guaido, U.S. coup attempt. Juan Guaido, someone who had never been elected to be president of Venezuela, stepped up and said, "Hey, I'm the president of Venezuela," and the United States pressured a bunch of other countries to also agree that Juan Guaido was the president of Venezuela, and none of it meant anything. It just made the opposition in Venezuela look like fucking idiots, clowns, and Juan Guaido went running around saying, "Yes, we'd love for the United States to invade us. Please, United States, invade our country." Which, here's the thing, even if you're right-wing, even if you're watching this right now and you're right-wing American or right-wing anywhere, and you hate Venezuela and you want to see Maduro knocked out as president, and you even if you wanted all that, are you that surprised that the parties in the country that want the country to be invaded by the United States don't do so well? Does that shock you? That if a candidate, even if you like them, even if you're like, I like all his policies, if a candidate comes up and says, please, other countries, such as America, that basically has a global empire doing whatever the fuck we want, stealing resources all over the world, America, please come and help invade us, take us over, put in your puppet government, and run us. Most people don't want that. Most people don't want their country to be invaded, even if they agree with certain policies. They're not like, like how many people in America, whether they hated Donald Trump or hated Joe Biden, how many people in America would you really get like, please, Canada, come invade us. Please, Mexico, take us over and put in your puppet guy. I think very few. I'd say very few. And yet that is basically what, Juan Guaido and those are saying in Venezuela. They're aligned with the United States. They want a U.S. invasion. They probably support U.S. bombing of Venezuela. So another level to think about here is if you're questioning what the mainstream media is saying about Venezuela, because it's all horseshit, it's all propaganda, it's all garbage, ask yourself this. Why does the U.S. and the mainstream media, our corporate media, focus on Venezuela? And Venezuela is one of 7, 10 countries that our mainstream media talks about fairly regularly. There's Russia, Iran, I'd say Britain, occasionally something on Brazil, maybe plenty on China. But it's only a handful. There's nearly 200 countries. There's only a handful that are talked about that often in our mainstream media. And so why is one of the most negatively talked about Venezuela? Because there's a lot of countries in Central and South America, right? But you don't hear a lot of news coverage about Uruguay. There's not that much in our mainstream media about Peru. Yet Venezuela comes up all the time. And the U.S. government has meetings and stuff where they will step up in their little uniforms and they go, we got to get Venezuela. How did they pick that country? Why is it that way? And for those of you who are not very bright, you might say, well, it's because they have a bad dictator, Maduro. Now, even if that were true, it's not true. But even if that were true, there's bad dictators all over the fucking world. Our world's filled with bad dictators. There's a lot of fucking assholes. We give 70% of the world's dictators get aid from America, get support from America. We love them. We help them. I mean, look at Saudi Arabia. Like, we fucking, a lot of these dictators we're all in for. So why is it, so it's clearly not that, even though Maduro is not a dictator. He is elected. So then what is it? Why is it we focus on Venezuela? Well, the reasons are, A, they're outside of our central banking system. They're outside of our monetary system. B, they're socialist, which is a bad example to set for Americans. You don't want Americans looking over there and go, oh, well, what are they doing there? Oh, they cut extreme poverty by 50%, 70% over the past 20 years. That's interesting. Oh, they cut homelessness almost entirely. Well, that's interesting. They cut poverty. The first one was extreme poverty. They cut regular poverty by 50% over the past 20. Well, that's it. Oh, they've completely free, just about completely free college education. That's interesting. And you don't want Americans saying that, because Americans might start getting ideas. They might start thinking, and you don't want Americans thinking, because that is a major problem when Americans start thinking. So those are the main reasons. And there's also a lot of oil down there. John Bolton famously said on Fox News, we'd like to get in there and get their oil. But, oil's on its way out. We have a lot of fucking oil. We've fracked the fuck out of everywhere in this country. Everybody's tap water's on fire. So we have a lot of oil, but we wouldn't mind more. But that's not the main reason. The main reasons are threat of the bad example, socialism, outside our central banking system. So here's another point that I think should be made about Venezuela is it's interesting to watch our mainstream media and our government try and say, oh, those elections aren't legit. They're not legit at all. And meanwhile, what do we have going on in this country? Like, we have, you have Donald Trump saying our elections are a fraud, in which Donald Trump was not defrauded out of his win. He lost the election very clearly. He actually would have done much, Biden would have done much worse. Sorry, Biden would have done much better if there hadn't been millions purged across the country. There's a lawsuit going, and unlike Trump's lawsuits, these are legit. These are not thrown out of court in the first 30 seconds with the judge laughing and spitting all over himself. But there's actually a legit lawsuit of 200,000. I think it's more like 300,000, but 200,000 they decided to include in the lawsuit of people purged from the voter rolls in Georgia, and that was they were not allowed to vote in this last election. Biden won Georgia by 10,000 votes. If those 200,000 people had been allowed to vote, Biden would have won by a lot more, maybe 100,000 or something. I'm no Biden fan. I'm no Trump fan. I'm just telling you the facts. So we have this shit election system that has all these problems. And most importantly, it's bought off. I mean, even if you ignore all of the other issues, our election system is completely bought off. Billions upon billions of dollars is spent in every election cycle. More than most countries combined is spent in these elections. And we have people running for president for basically 3 years. In most countries, including the United Kingdom, it's like 3 months. So you have that is the number one rigging of our election system, is the deluge of money that just rains down on buying endless numbers of commercials and emails and data mining. And it is rigged by money all the way, fucking endlessly for years. And that makes our system one of the worst in the world. So Venezuela is far more legit than anything we've got going here. And yet, our media, our government, everything points to them and says, it's a rigged election. It's not real. Not to mention that I said money's the number one way our electoral system's rigged. Actually, the number one way our electoral system's rigged is by only having two parties that both stand for the same thing. If you only have two parties that are allowed on the debate stage, allowed into the mainstream media, allowed into get in front of the eyeballs of most Americans, allowed into the discussion, into the mindscape, into the media, if you only have two parties and they both believe in business as usual, if they both believe in the same fucking endless wars, fucking endless Wall Street, fucking endless environmental destruction, if they only believe in just rampaging and catastrophe and economy based on death, if they only believe in those things, then there's not actually a choice. So you don't actually have an election. And a real election would have multiple ideas, different choices. That's not what we have. So we have one of the most rigged electoral systems in the world. And we point down to Australia and say, theirs is the problem. Yeah, fuck you. Right, sure it is. The final reason, and then I'll get to my last story here. The final reason that what's going on in Venezuela is important. Another election, the United Socialist Party won, but it's showing that the people of these countries are standing up and fighting back. And we saw it in Bolivia, and we saw it to some extent in Mexico. I know some people have some issues with what AMLO's doing, but he's still at the very least progressive. So Bolivia just voted out their U.S.-backed coup. They put back in place Evo Morales' mass party, and they're showing us how it's done in a lot of these countries. They're showing us the fight for the soul of this world, and inherent in that, I'm talking a sustainability, an ability for the environment to regenerate and sustain us, and actually have some kind of fucking future that doesn't smell like burning. That is happening right now, and it's not Biden versus Trump. It's these people, a lot of them indigenous, a lot of them women, a lot of them, not your standard white colonialist people. It's those people versus what America continues to try and do to the world with our globalist empire. It is David versus Goliath, but it's also a glimmer of hope in this world. People standing up and fighting back. And that's how change happens. Change always looks like it's not going to amount to shit till it does. I mean, my favorite example maybe is you look at during the civil rights movement, and you look at the earlier days when you had the sit-ins and people were definitely marching too. But you look at some of the videos of people where they just decided, we're going to go in, a small group of us, we're going to sit at the lunch counter that says whites only. And we're going to sit there, and we're not going to fight anyone. We're not going to stab anyone. We're not going to shoot anyone. We're going to sit there, and people are going to lose their goddamn minds, and they're going to spit in our faces and scream awful things at us. Do you think they felt like they were winning when they were sitting there? Do you think they felt like, yep, any day now, we're going to fix this. Any day now, we're going to have civil rights. Any day now, we're going to black people will be voting in this country. Any day now, we won't have segregation anymore. Do you think that's how they felt? Or do you think most of them felt, this is fucking hopeless, but I'm going to do it because it's right? That's how these things start. They start by people looking in the fucking, staring into the sun and going, I don't think I'm getting there anytime soon. But I'm going to start and put one foot in front of the other, see where it takes me. So anyway, well done, those who are standing up in Central South America. All right, I want to move on to, and actually here, this is another easy segue. By the way, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Many of you may be watching this on a different YouTube channel because I have multiple. So if you are, please go to youtube.com/moment of clarity. Go to that YouTube channel and click subscribe and click the bell icon because stuff's incredibly censored. I'm actually about to talk about more of that, but you're more likely to hear about my videos at youtube.com/moment of clarity. Okay, so I talked about this story the other day. The largest strike in human history happened in India. 250 million people united. It was a variety of groups. It was, farmers, workers, feminists. It was people from all different areas of the country and the different areas of work went on strike. Largest strike in human history. So I covered it. The video did pretty well. Jimmy Dore covered it, and that video was doing pretty well. And then several things happened. Basically, because these videos were doing well, because people were hearing about the largest strike in human history, because you had workers in America maybe thinking, hey, considering they can get 250 million people to strike, maybe we could get like 10. Maybe we could get 100. Maybe we could get a few people to go on strike and demand something for workers during a pandemic where the front lines workers are treated like shit, aren't even given hazard pay in the middle of a pandemic. The essential people in this country are the ones on the front lines, not the goddamn CEOs up in the boardrooms. They're not the essential workers. It's the people on the front lines doing the everyday work. They're the essential workers, and they're getting paid dick. So I think they thought. I think the ruling elite, and it goes beyond just the ruling elite. We're talking the elite media, etc. Start thinking, wow, this story is starting to gain some traction. And so you see things start to happen. You see the white blood cells kick into gear. I call them the white blood cells because, as you know, in the human body, when there's an infection, the white blood cells are the ones that attack the infection. So when there's an idea online that the unfettered capitalist, ravenous, just fucking death economy views as threatening, then the white blood cells kick into gear. The white blood cells are often the corporate media, sometimes politicians. If it gets to that point, often the people that run the big tech platforms, the social media platforms, those are the white blood cells. The blue check elite liberals, that they're the white blood cells to make sure no one actually questions this system in a very large way, to make sure no one starts to get those ideas across. Now, a few years ago, it would happen all the time that these ideas would go viral. That's how you end up with Occupy Wall Street and that kind of stuff. Nowadays, they've got it more beaten down. They've got it kept in a cage because they control the social media platforms more than ever before. I think in their opening, 10 years or whatever, first 10 years, Facebook just wanted to keep growing, and they just wanted people to use it as much as possible. And they never occurred to them that the best business practice would be to crush dissent, to crush what people were saying. I think that didn't concern them. They just wanted people talking, people sharing. Then they got big enough that now the U.S. government says basically, oh, we're going to shut you down if you don't stop these ideas from flowing. And Facebook, they don't give a shit. They're like, oh, sure, yeah, we'll shut it down. We'll get rid of all these people. We'll purge people. We'll suppress people. We'll shadow ban people. So they started going after this story. One thing they did was they printed some articles on, I don't remember which ones, but standard liberal garbage media. And they printed some articles like, oh, it wasn't really a big strike. It was 12 farm workers. That was it. That was all it was. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. It's like that scene in Naked Gun where the building's exploding behind him and there's fireworks going off and people screaming, and he's looking the other way at a crowd of gawkers going, nothing to see here. Just go home. There's nothing to see. Well, that's what your liberal media does when there's something like the largest strike humankind has ever seen. They face the other direction at the people who are starting to pay attention to it, and they go, nothing to see here. Go home. Go back to your atomized seclusion boxes that we call apartments, and just don't talk about this. Sorry. Don't talk about this. Watch a funny video about, I don't know, about like people buying things, or like squirrels, or something like that, and stop talking about this. So liberal media started doing that. There's a few articles out there like, oh, this strike wasn't that large, wasn't that big a deal. And they're, as far as I can tell, they're horseshit. They're completely full of garbage. But so that happened. And then I also noticed Jimmy Dore, a friend of mine, he tweeted out that his video about this, about the largest strike in human history, can't even be posted on Facebook anymore. Now, I don't know if they've stopped this, because sometimes when something gets attention, they stop doing it. But at least I assume when Jimmy tweeted it, they had stopped the ability to share that clip. Like you could copy the URL, post it into your Facebook, and it wouldn't allow it to be shared. Now, you hear that and you wonder, like, why would they take that step? What do they find so scary that they can't let you share this article? It's not like it was an article about how awesome mass shootings are, or an article about how everyone should hate Muslims, or, that's understandable because it's still a form of censorship, but it's understandable because it's encouraging hate crimes. It's encouraging harm and violence. This is not. This is encouraging workers to stand together and to demand basic human rights. This is an article and an idea encouraging average people to actually fight back in a very peaceful way and change things for the better. And Facebook can't have that, because their job is to cover up stories like this. Their job is to help the corporatocracy to continue to run the machine, where people are paid pennies and end up standing in line at food banks for hours and can't barely survive a pandemic, and are going bankrupt and are in debt to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars. That's their job, is to make sure that system runs smoothly, keeps going, just humming along, sounds real nice, And whenever a story like this starts to go viral, like the largest strike in human history, whenever that starts to go viral, that's like the machine having a clinkety clunkety sound. The machine was running so smoothly. The unfettered capitalist machine was just humming along, and then you start to hear clinkety clunkety 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 clunkety, and they're like, "Whoa, what's that? The machine's clinking. There's clunking. There's a problem. There's a problem in there." And then they look at what's clinking and clumping, and they're, this story's going viral that's making people think. It's making people wonder if they could stand up and demand these rights and demand something better. And so, yeah, that's what it is. I don't know if they've stopped that, and you can now repost that video of Jimmy Dores. I also haven't checked whether you can repost my video on the same topic that I did. But anyway. Clearly, they were trying to stop it from getting out there because it's a dangerous story, and we got to keep doing it. I don't tell people to delete their Facebook pages, because I think you've got to use the tools they've given you while building the alternative systems. So I highly recommend you go on alternative places and get active on them and build them up. There aren't that many great ones to begin with, but one is Rockfin. I'm now on Rockfin, rockfin.com/Lee Camp. I'm going to start doing premium content over there. There's plenty of free content too, but I'm going to start doing premium content because they actually so far support creators in a way that is far more beneficial than what YouTube and Facebook do to people. So that's rockfin.com/Lee Camp. There is minds.com, it's doing okay. There's another exciting project hopefully happening soon, that might be a competitor to Twitter. I hope to have more on that coming up. But we got to build up these systems while still it's still exploiting the tools that they've given us. So, like if you never post on Facebook because you're fucking sick of them and you're sick of them stealing all your data and everything, I recommend share videos and shit on there, and just then turn it off. You don't have to sit there and surf it all day, but use the tools they've given you to spread these ideas. All right, maybe I'll check real quick if there's a question or two, although I'll probably wrap up soon. It's been a pleasure. Oops, that was an accident. Parler is what Damon said. Yeah, Parler is I think it's a competitor to Twitter, but so far, it seems like they're exclusively far-right people. I mean, that could change, and if it changes, maybe I'd feel differently. But so far, it seems to be a lot of far-right stuff. Let's see. Terry Biddle says that our little town paper gives us a bad review for protesting each week. It uses the same catchphrases as the rest of Canada, though. So I guess Terry's in Canada, and they go after her and whatever group for protesting, which is, yeah, that's standard corporate media. Go after the protesters, either call them ineffectual or call them, they act like they don't. If you're willing to work for corporate media and put forward the garbage propaganda that lies us into war and lies us into environmental collapse, then aren't you the idiot? Aren't you the moron? Aren't you the one who doesn't understand? Like, in order to have that job, you've got to, by definition, not understand how shit works, not understand what we're doing to the world. So, yeah, but they love to point at protesters and say, like, oh, it doesn't mean anything. They're not doing anything. They don't understand. That's kind of their job. They're the white blood cells. That's their job. Speaking of Canada, I covered on Redacted Tonight in Toronto. A guy it's on the last Redacted Tonight. If you want to watch it, go to youtube.com/Redacted Tonight. But a guy, I can't remember, I think his last name is Seavright, but he was building tiny homes. He's a carpenter, and he just decided, young carpenter, like in his 20s, just decided to start building tiny homes for the people that he saw living on the streets in Toronto. He just would go out and be like, here's your tiny house. Use it how you see fit. And just give them to them. And the Toronto government contacted him to say, stop that. Do not give away tiny homes. It was upsetting them because they don't, that's bad for the capitalist idea, right? If people are given homes, then they won't always agree to be wage slaves. And of course, that's also not true when they've actually done studies. People don't work less because their basic needs are taken care of. Nick is asking whether there's an MOC live stream with Eleanor Goldfield on this coming Sunday. I'm not sure. Eleanor has to travel. We'll see. If so, I will email you from my email list. So join the email list. You can join at leecamp.com. It's on the sidebar there. And I'll email people to let people know. Let's see. Keith. This is Keith McHenry. I think I emailed with Keith about having him on the show. Keith co-founded, having him on Redacted Tonight. Keith co-founded Food Not Bombs, and he says here in the comments, oh, actually, I can highlight it. Forgot about that. Keith says he was blacklisted from work in the United States. Raytheon got United Way to fire him after the 9/11 attacks. I'd be interested to hear more about that, Keith. I know we had talked about having you on the show, and then I don't know, scheduling got in the way, and I still need to do it. But Food Not Bombs. For those who don't know, Food Not Bombs, excellent organization. Look it up. You can donate to it. You can help out. You can volunteer. It's active in a lot of cities, and I think they give out. I can't remember if they give out bombs or they give out food, but it's one or the other. They either give out bombs or food. I'm not sure. I can't quite remember. No, they give out food, obviously, to those who need it, and you can look them up. I might do a story soon this week. I'm hoping to, if I can get time to write it and everything. But a story about how Food Not Bombs in Las Vegas was just the homes they had built for people, for the homeless, was just attacked. People's homes were destroyed, and I hope to have more on that later. Thanks, Keith. I really appreciate your support. I look forward to chatting with you on Redacted Tonight. Let's see here. Graham and Lee, he means Graham Elwood, and Lee should be in the presidential Raytheon in Massachusetts. I think there was a word missing in the sentence. Should in the... Yeah, I don't know. But he's talking about Graham Elwood, that I do a show called Government Secrets with, and you can check that out. It's a free show, free podcast. We cover some of the deepest, darkest government secrets in the country's been involved, America's been involved in over the past 100 years or more. Maybe we've probably gone back. Well, actually, we've talked about Columbus before, so we've gone back hundreds and hundreds of years, but. Yeah, check out Government Secrets, and a lot of it's very timeless. It's very evergreen, so you can listen to the episodes, when you're driving or whatnot. Let's see. Nick says Food Not Bombs is 100% plant-based organization. I don't know if that means their buildings are built out of plants and whether their notepads are made out of plants. And, well, I guess the paper is made out of wood. But I don't know. I don't know if their bombs are made out of plants because I think they give out bombs. No, I'm sorry. When the pandemic thing has me cooped up, and then I start saying dumb shit. But no, Nick, of course, is talking about how they give out largely vegan food, or maybe only vegan food. I don't know. But anyway, vegan, vegetarian. Let's see. Anything else? Thanks for chatting with me, everybody. Let's see. Yeah. Tony says he comes for the Naked Gun references. Well, I am glad to hear that. That is a good reason to join the live stream, is to learn more about Naked Gun. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody coming and joining me, and thanks for being a part of this. I try and do these fairly often. I try and do them almost every weekday, except sometimes. And they're at leecamp.com. The suppression, I kind of want to do an episode where I go through just every level of suppression and censorship that Redacted Tonight and my other channels have gone through over the past 4 years, because I realize it's a lot of things, and it's all added up to, now I get 5% of the views that I used to get because of all those levels of suppression. And I think it might be an interesting episode to go through them all. But anyway, thank you for checking it out. And I would love for you to hit subscribe and also join me, rockfin.com/LeeCamp. And yeah, I really appreciate it. Keep fighting, share this, and I will see you probably tomorrow.